It's 8:10. It's the Sunday Breakfast Show from BBC Radio Leicester. I'm sure it didn't pass you by, particularly if you're English, that it was St George's Day on Tuesday, when theoretically, at any rate, we celebrate Englishness and England. But what is it that constitutes the nation's identity has been a matter of fairly heated debate over the past few weeks. Militant atheists should accept that Britain is a Christian country and get over it, the Communities Secretary Eric Pickles said earlier on in the month. And just a week ago, the Prime Minister David Cameron said the UK is a Christian country and we should not be afraid to say so. And yet, quoted in the Sunday Telegraph this morning, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, saying that we are a post-Christian nation. So what are we to make of all this? The Prime Minister's speech was actually part of a speech in Oxford on the 400th anniversary of the King James Bible, when the Prime Minister called for a revival of traditional Christian values to counter Britain's moral collapse. Well, are we a Christian nation, and what precisely do we mean by the designation Christian nation? Joining us to tease out and discuss the issue, joined this morning by the Archdeacon of Loughborough, the Venerable David Newman, local Sikh and long-time resident of Leicester, Daljit Singh Makan, who was on the phone with us this morning, and also Gush Bumrah, who is the president of the Leicester Secular Society. Good morning to all three of you.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thanks for joining us today. David, first of all, do we still live in a Christian society, and what do we mean by this phrase?
I think what we mean by this phrase is the key issue, isn't it? Because I think we can use it in different ways. That our society has historically and culturally been deeply shaped by Christianity is undeniable, I think. And we would still find that in, for instance, the 2011 census, 60% of the country designating themselves as Christian. So that's a massive number by any count. So I think Christianity is very much still part of the identity of our country. Has patterns of belief and patterns of church going changed a lot? Undeniably, of course it has, as has lots of patterns of the way we live today. But I'd still like to say that Christianity is still a very big part of the identity of our country.
Now, Daljit, you're a Sikh. Do you object to being told that you live in a Christian nation? And does the expression actually have a meaning for you?
Well, first of all, I don't object at all, actually. I'll wholeheartedly accept the statement. And whichever way David Cameron was putting it, by the way. I mean, if he was talking about it being a majority Christian country in terms of belief, well, the religious statistics in the census bear that out, don't they? 59.3% of the population profess to be Christian. If he meant it as a cultural, in terms of a cultural theme, well, of course, undeniably, as David has said, sort of century upon century of Christianity has shaped the history, the culture, the arts, and the humour of this country. And the fact that we've had 40 or 50 years of immigration has changed the ethnic and religious landscape in this country, undeniably, in certain parts of the country. But that doesn't take away the fact or purge our history in any sense. We have to accept that this is a Christian nation. And I can give you a little anecdote, if I may.
Okay, yeah.
Many years ago, when I was growing up in Kingston upon Thames in Surrey, one of our neighbours, a very nice old lady, Mrs. Ring, once made a comment to my father. And my father had only recently come to the country. He came in 64, and this was about 67 or 68 she made this comment. He gave her a lift to the hospital one day. She was quite elderly, and she said to him, "That was very Christian of you," she said. Now, my father didn't take that in a bad way at all. He knew exactly what she meant. She was talking about the Christian values of compassion and charity and mercy. And my dad was just being a good citizen. So that's the way to look at it, that these are wonderful values in Christianity. And as a Sikh, these values resonate with me. I see the same values in Sikhism. I also see in Sikhism the value of equality, by the way. And I'm not offended at all. I wholeheartedly, agree with David Cameron's comments. He may want to qualify them, though. Where's he coming from on them? And what does he exactly mean by them? Because I think that's part of the problem here, that there's been such a strong debate, because perhaps we're not entirely clear what his motives were in saying them. Is he trying to reassert a sense of identity, basically? Is he lamenting the decline in Christian worship, the decline in church attendances?
So, Gush Bumrah, president of the Leicester Secular Society, I think it's about time we brought you in here. Obviously, Daljit doesn't mind at all. David is obviously very much for it. There's been a lot of criticism of Messrs Cameron and Pickles from secularists about their comments. Why is what they've said so objectionable to you?
Well, I mean, as everyone said, the historical fact of it is not in dispute. What is in dispute is that Christianity, faith in general, is in decline, and if we look at the statistics of the youth, then it's much worse than it is for the population in general. Less than 30%, less than 20%, less than 25% say they're Christians, and for 18 to 24-year-olds.
But as a population of the whole, obviously the country is still the vast majority of people saying that they are Christian, so surely we must still be a Christian country.
Yeah, I mean, in that technical sense, yes, but the church attendances aren't there. People say it as a default position. It's not that they are sort of worshippers, or that they're guided by the morality that Christianity has traditionally offered. I mean if the key thing is how we teach people a moral way of life, and just harking back on what was one source of our morals is not going to do it. Youngsters in the future, or our current youngsters, are not going to take kindly to being told this is why we should behave in a way, just because it's been a religious tradition.
So, David, do you accept that Christianity is in decline? So it's only a matter of time and years to come before the majority is no longer Christian, so we can no longer be a Christian country?
I don't think I can accept that, no. I think that institutions in general are probably less well supported today. But, I mean, just take the example of young people. They may not go to church in quite the same way as they once did, but 1 million young people are educated in church schools every day. And the church is still a leading provider of youth activities, youth clubs and that sort of thing, probably one of the largest providers in the country. So the church is deeply involved in the lives of young people in our land.
And Daljit, obviously you're not finding it offensive at all to say that you live in a Christian country.
Well, I don't see any conflict or dichotomy at all in regarding Britain as both a Christian country and a multi-faith country. And I think it's becoming very much enriched over the last 40 or 50 years through immigration and through different faiths now coming into this country. But look, I mean, when I was a youngster, I went to what was basically a Christian in inverted commas school. I attended assembly any morning. That hasn't weakened my faith as a Sikh. In fact, I think I'm a better Sikh now because I appreciate the values of Christianity, and I thoroughly enjoyed attending assembly every morning. We shouldn't look upon this as a negative. We should always try to pull out the positive. And the positive here is that David Cameron, I think, is basically just trying to make the point that the church needs to wake up to the problem of falling church attendances. Why is Christianity in decline in this country in such a tragic way, especially amongst the young, as Gush just mentioned? And undoubtedly, come the next census, that percentage could fall below 50%. It might be 59 at the moment, so technically a majority. So maybe, Christians in general need to sort of, introspect and examine why is Christianity in such decline when other faiths actually are very strong in this country.
And Gush, would you accept that Christianity, has shaped the culture and institutions with the faith? So culturally, we are a Christian nation, if in no other way, even if the numbers are declining.
Well, I mean, you can't change the fact of history, and so you're right. But the thing that secularists find objectionable in what Mr. Cameron said is this insistence, or this implication that faith is necessary or faith is better than not faith. That our morality somehow comes from Christianity, and that is what irks. Because I mean, if I can give you an example from my own youth, I mean, I grew up in Leicester, and I remember being beaten up just because I was a brown kid, right? And well, however Christian we are now, arguably 40 years ago, we were less of a Christian. We were more of a Christian nation. So the morality of that day was that it was acceptable to go around and beat people up because racism was much more common. And now, thankfully, it isn't. And, Christ's teachings or any religious teachings over the last 50 years haven't changed, but our morality, our sense of how to behave with each other has improved enormously. And that's because of improvements in philosophy, improvements in understanding of science, of how we're all related, all of these kind of things, and the mixture of different cultures and so on. That's what's driving our morality forward, and that is, and it's a bit irksome that Christianity seems to want to take credit for it, and that's the kind of thing that that is unfair.
In 30 seconds, David, then a quick reaction to that.
I would never want to say that Christianity has any monopoly on morality. Of course, people act well from all faiths and none. But I would say that faith and the values are very much nurtured by faith, and I would say certainly in this country, our behaviour, our values are very much shaped by the Christian heritage.
I think these debates will rumble on. The Archdeacon of Loughborough, the Venerable David Newman, local Sikh and long-time resident of Leicester, Daljit Singh Makan, and also Gush Bumrah, the president of the Leicester Secular Society. Thanks to you all for the debate this morning. Nice to have you on the show.